Blessings. It's Natalia with Enchanted Herbals and the Rooted Womb. I wanted to talk today about wounds and maybe give a couple tips, or at least start to dive into what it means to start to acknowledge your wounds and move forward from them. So I have been, you could say, blessed with all different kinds of wounds in my life, from a child on up to this current moment. And I have been able to navigate. So the blessing behind them is that I've been able to navigate through them, and they have made me the person that I am today. So I am eternally grateful for the wisdom that my wounds have taught me. And that is one of the biggest keys when we start to dive into wound healing. Are you ready to stand in the wisdom of your wound? And are you ready and willing to add forgiveness and let it go, not only through the mental, emotional body, but also through the physical body? So sometimes that's a big process, and sometimes it's a little shorter process. So it just depends on how deep the wound is and what you're working on. Our wounds come from lineage line, from our parents, our grandparents, and so forth. And they also come from the beginning, the first starts of your current life, in the womb, and your birth, and your childhood on up to the current moment. So a lot of times your wounds will resurface as different issues in your life, circling over and over again. So it could be an issue around, we'll say, if it's an issue around money, right? So there's like this issue or this wound that happened in your childhood or lineage. If your grandparents and great-grandparents went through the Great Depression, went through World War II, lost all of their financial backing, that is passed down through generations, that feeling, that sense. It's a safety mechanism that our primal aspect of our body has to keep our lineage in a safe place. So for instance, if you go back primally to tribes and you were in a place of famine, which a lot of tribes were, but this lineage is passed through your bloodline, your DNA line is passed through to help you cope better with what famine is, to help you remedy that as much as you can. It's just a knowing of what your ancestors have gone through. And in that knowing, we are empowered to change it and heal it. So when we're talking about wounds and how deep they can be, or how shallow they can be, that's kind of how I like to look at it. Some of them are really entrained in our DNA, and some of them we learned as a child, which was part of our parents or whoever raised you. And then some of them are secondary to some of these other wounds that might be more shallow, but because this wound has created this stagnant area, you have like other satellite wounds that start to come around it to not only protect you and the center of what this is, which might be really painful, but to also even get you to kind of start to become aware of problems around you, if that makes sense. So the body has a really great way to try to protect itself here in this moment. But long-term effects of holding on to wounds or setting wounds aside and moving forward, that damage can be devastating to the body. So the sooner you stop and you start to realize that the wounds that you have, that you might be aware of, then, and that you have an option on what to do with them, then that's the better it is for you. The body will always give you signals in advance that it's heading down a road, that an imbalance or a dis-ease is starting to happen. So in some cases, if your constitution was weaker to begin with, these warnings are much shorter. You might have a much shorter time of warning. And other times when your constitution is stronger, your original constitution at birth, then you have a longer time. I've seen some people be completely self-destructive for decades, or a decade or more, before their body really started to show these signs and really broke down to a place of complete disease. And then sometimes it doesn't take very long at all. So knowing your constitution is really important about that as well. So back into wounds. So I just wanted to touch about like where you would start, because so many people start, especially nowadays, where we're really kind of starting to really get opened into our mind, into our spirit selves. We're really trying to find our purpose, our truth. We're really starting to open up some of these old things that have been closed for a long time lineage, or even if you believe in past lives, for a long time in past lives. So things are starting to move. Whether you want to move or not, they are starting to move. So the more tools you start to collect now to heal and to open your wounds, your self-care, I'm talking about you, not yet going out into the world, but you, how to heal your wounds. The more tools you collect in your toolbox, the easier this process is going to be as we start to move forward into this sense of enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, as we step forward into the Aquarian age and beyond. So I'm grateful every single day for all the tools that I have to help me through my wounds. I have had some pretty deep wounds. So if it wasn't for these tools that I have, I'm not sure where I would be right now. But to be able to collect the wisdom from these wounds by using my tools when I was in pain has helped me become this beautiful woman that I am today, this healer for myself, and to extend that out to my family, my children, my sisterhood, to the world around me. So I am profoundly grateful for my wounds. I don't want to experience some of them again. So I can say that hopefully I've made it past those and I'm in a different place. But I have had some major wounds repeat themselves. And the second time that it's come around, my outlook and my process with it was far easier than, say, the first time that it appeared in my life. So it does get easier. And if there's more that I have to learn around that, then I will respect that. But I'm going to try not to go back in that place. So wounds for me, I've come up with so many wonderful techniques about healing wounds, not only in our own physical body and the energy systems of the body, but lineage-wise, and really learning how to gather the proper tools that feel good to me, because healing is very personal. So learning how to gather these tools that feel good to me and learning how to practice them on a daily basis. So you can look at it as a sport. If you want to be like the best baseball player in the world, you're not going to go to one game and play for that one time and then claim that you're the best baseball player of the world. There's practice that's involved. There's training that's involved, and people who use sports as a profession, they are in it all the time. They're training for it. They're practicing for it. Musicians is another. Artist is another, right? Life is the same. When we have these wounds, it's a practice to go through and heal them. It's a practice on using our tools and strengthening our tools and the pathways of the body that will allow you to heal. So when you find a tool that's really resonates with you and you're like, oh yeah, I really enjoy this, sit with it for a while. You don't need to move forward just yet. Just use that tool. Really learn the ins and outs of the tool. How does the tool feel in your body? How can you breathe it in deeper? How can you really engulf yourself in learning how to use those tools? The breath is a perfect place to start. So I encourage people in my yoga classes to stop and breathe 3 times, deep, slow breaths. Just learning how to stop in a moment and feel what it feels like to draw that prana, that life force into the body. Notice it circulate through the whole body. Notice the expansion of the lungs, of the heart, of the belly, the release of tension, the temperature, everything about that breath. Allow yourself to slow down. That is one tool that I talk about on a regular basis to my students on how to start the process of healing wounds. When we are in a place of stress, we're in our fight and flight mode, our breath shallows. Our processes of the bodies come in towards the major organs and leave the peripheral parts of the body and the sight out because we're in fight and flight. That moment, the body thinks that it needs to run from a bear, it needs to do something to protect itself in that moment. The act of slowing down for a minute and taking a few deep breaths and kind of looking around you or closing your eyes shifts you back into the place of rest and digest, where your peripheral has opened up again. Your blood flow starts to come back down to the limbs. Your body is able to digest properly. You're in a different place. This is the place of healing. When we are starting to open up old wounds and let them go, if you can't regulate your breath through it, you're going to have a heck of a time. So it's even like detoxing. When I talk about actual physical detoxing, if your detox pathways aren't open, like you're not pooping, you're going to have a horrible experience trying to detox toxins out of the body. So it's the same thing with when we're talking about our emotional and our wounds that are coming up. You have to be able to learn to regulate your breath and be present in the moment. So that is one tip. The other one is that I have found over this time, I really started diving into wound healing and my shadow work and acknowledging that there was something in me that I had the power to transmute and heal. After I had kids. Before that, so that was 20 years ago, they start to show you things in your life. If you're a parent, you know that, right? All of a sudden your kids are doing something and you're like, oh, I probably should stop doing that because that's what it looks like, right? So it was really the gift of having my children show me that I can be a better person, show me that I do have these wounds that I need to heal, not only for myself, but for them as well. I have a son and a daughter. And so as a woman growing up, we have our own kind of set of wounds that we put on ourselves as women. And I did not want that for my daughter. I was determined to heal things about myself to not pass on. And that meant actually doing the work. It didn't just mean physically showing up as, oh, look, I'm not going to do this in front of my daughter, but I'll still do this over here away from my daughter because she still was affected by it. There was things that I had healed and I hadn't done in years. Actually, I hadn't healed. I just didn't do them outwardly, but I grew up doing that, like body bashing, right? I was not happy with my beautiful body, this gift that I had growing up as a teenager. I was always bashing. I wish I had this. I wish I was that. I wish I was this, right? I didn't want those things for my daughter, so I never said those things in front of her, but she still picked up on it. My mom did it, I did it, and she still did it. So it was that lineage line that came through that she was still resonating with because I was still resonating with. So there's a lot of deep work that happens that shifts and changes and heals your kids and your grandkids, or even just you, your body, your life. I'm not saying you have to have kids to heal. I'm just saying they do perpetuate it. It's like the gas on the fire. It's like all of a sudden, you're like, oh crap, I got to do this. So I'm grateful for that, right? So the wounds that happen, okay, so back to my point. So one of the other really great things that I learned. So when I started on this path, I was reading about the path of enlightenment. There's this place that I can reach now that's going to make me feel blissful all the time. All the time. Can you imagine that? So I was like, yeah, I'm going to get to that place and I'm going to do it now, right? So I proclaimed, that's it. I'm chopping the lineage trauma that's in my body for my children, and I'm changing it all right now, right? Well, that led me in the hospital, really. Super sick. Like, it's just too much for the tissue of the body to really push it through something that it's not ready to go through. So I liken it to a screw in the wall. You can take a handhold on the head of the screw, and you can tear it out, but you're going to do all this damage to the wall as you tear it out. Or you can just start to unscrew it, one movement at a time. Now, when you're on the path, especially when you first start to realize the excitement of changing who you are or becoming who you were meant to be when you came by being here, I know it's exciting, and I know you just want to move as fast as you possibly can. And trust me, there will be some things that move really fast, and then there's going to be some things that need to be really slow. And patience is a virtue. Like, it is something that you have to learn. And the ability to really listen to your body. So it's only capable of so much at a time. If you're already in a place of illness, chronic illness, your body's tired, you're exhausted, you're malnourished, to start to unwind some of these old wounds with not addressing the foundation of your body is going to make it a more painful process. So take care of you. Learn to slow down and take a deep breath. In that process, I learned, right, that the tears of healing, it starts with the spiritual self. It starts with the spirit body. Now, that can mean anything, whatever it is to you, because to me, spirituality is very personal. It's your connection to your higher source, or your connection to nature, or your connection to the stars above you, whatever that is. So even if you're atheist, what is it that you are part of that makes you feel whole? What is it that makes you feel supported? So maybe that's going out in nature and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is my favorite place to be. That's just something bigger than you, something that helps support you, something that gives you a drive or faith in moving forward in those times when you're in a really dark place. So that's the first. It's like really practicing and learning what spirituality is to you. It begins to then trickle down into the mind, into the emotions, and last is the body. So your mental body is very tricky to learn to navigate, but once you have your spiritual sense set, then that mental body will start to follow. It takes a lot of practice. This was probably one of the longest times for me to learn to navigate my mind, listen to my emotions. Your emotions is just the feeling sense of the mind and the body, what's happening in the body. It's kind of like the bridge between the mind and the body. Your body senses, your body's going through something, it creates this chemical response through the mind, and then you feel it, right? That's what emotion is, a feeling. The body is really tricky. So now you've learned to navigate through the mind. You've really strengthened your spirituality. You know how to stop and take a deep breath. You've started to collect some tools. They're in your toolbox and you've used them on a regular basis so you can pull them out and be like, oh, I remember what this feels like. I know what to do with this. Because remember, when we go back into chaos, when we go back into pain, it's really hard to stop that cycle unless you become aware of it and you're able to pull out a tool to help you with it. So practice, 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 practice as much as you can when you're in a good state, and then your body will follow suit as you start to bring up some of these painful things, or even just annoyances in your body. The body is the last because this is dense tissue, and we hold on and store pain and events in the body. This is the body's just natural, normal defense to get you, one, to remember that act, to remember what you did. It did not feel good. You don't want to do that again, right? Two, sometimes the body can't deal with it, so it pushes it aside. This is very easy to explain in the terms of toxicity. So you're exposed to something that's toxic, your body's trying to get rid of it. It can't. It might push it into some tissue, some fat cells somewhere, because it can't fully take care of it. Viruses are another one. The body has it's about 6 weeks to deal with whatever it's dealing with in a virus. And then after that point, it starts to go, okay, look, like, let's figure out, if we can't deal with it, we're going to mark it as part of us, and we're going to push it over here in this tissue and let it sit there. Because right now, the body's first priority is surviving in this moment. It doesn't care about later on, right? So the body's going to do what it needs to do to protect all of its vital organs and keep you healthy in this moment. That's why a lot of times when people are seriously wounded, even bleeding out, you're still going all of a sudden in this moment, especially if there's a bigger picture around and you have people that you're trying to protect. You're still going because the body's trying to survive so intently in the moment. So we need to kind of get out of its way and let it do its process. So it's the same thing with healing. We have to be able to drop ourselves back into the place of rest and digest, take our deep breaths, be in the moment, and let it process out. So when we start to move through some of these wounds that are tucked away deep in our body, say you fell when you were a kid and you broke your collarbone, and you have this muscle memory of that, right? And so it healed, but maybe it didn't heal fully, then then it could come back later on in life as arthritis, as some sort of ache and pain, right? All kinds of things start to happen. Viruses are the same. They can lodge themselves in different tissues in the body, and then when we get stressed out, they seem to like reappear into some other kind of symptomatic and create some other issues in the body. So allowing yourself to come back into a state of balance and be aware of that is really hard. You know, it's I can empathize. Like, it's a really tricky thing to tell the body, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is and you're safe now in this moment. Let's process this painful event out of you. You know, energy work, the things that help move it out of the physical body is that breath work, is just sitting and listening. Give it an opportunity to talk, like you're letting a friend vent to you. Let it just dissolve and open up and kind of just move out. You know, sometimes we need body work to do that, energy work to do that, yoga, movement, opening. So to round up my talk on wounds for right now, remember, start gathering your tools. Excuse me. Start gathering your tools. Start using and practicing your tools. Learn how to take deep, slow breaths and bring yourself into the moment. My wound around my throat right now is trying to come out. And start to really strengthen your spiritual body. If you already have a strong spiritual body, start learning the navigations of the mind, start honoring the feelings of emotions, and start to sit and listen to the body. So these are just the beginning stages. Be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself. Look for more videos that'll be coming, and my classes as well towards healing. I also do one-on-one work with energy work, and then herbal consults as well to support the physical body during the processes of whatever you're experiencing. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you were able to follow through. Sometimes my mind wanders in all different directions, but usually I can try to bring it back to my original point sometimes. So throw out any questions that you might have. And I just was going to draw a wisdom card here from Louise Hayes. And I have flower petal cards from Sherilyn Darcy. I'll show you those. So the wisdom card for us. I release old hurts and forgive everyone, including myself, including yourself. Forgive and love yourself. I can never get even. Revenge does not work because what I give out comes back to me. Laws of karmic. It's true. The buck has to stop somewhere. So there's a point in time in your life where you're like, this is it. I can't do this anymore. And then you'll fall off and then you get back up and you say it again. Keep trying. Keep finding a tribe around you of people who support and love you, and love yourself as much as you can. Be patient, be kind, always to yourself. The flower petals. It says, Daisy, believe and trust in happiness. So this is the flower petals card. And this is just the wisdom deck from Louise Hayes. Wishing you many blessings, much love. Oh, please, please, please be kind to yourself. You're so important. We need you here. Blessings.